hey, if you own dollars, you better do what we tell you, or we have the ability to punish you. And I don't think China is happy to be in that position. I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where the U.S. has that kind of power. So I think we've created another political incentive on top of the economic incentive to de-dollarize, to move away from the dollar.
Peter Schiff discusses the current challenges facing the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. He points out that historical dynamics, such as the dollar being backed by gold and the US being a major creditor, no longer support its status. Schiff highlights the shift from being a creditor to the largest debtor nation with substantial trade deficits. He suggests that the excessive US debt and global imbalances are unsustainable. Schiff believes that recent geopolitical actions, particularly sanctions on Russia, may accelerate a move away from the dollar. He predicts a potential de-dollarization crisis, with high inflation and negative real rates on US debt, making gold a likely alternative for a new reserve currency. In summary, Schiff argues that the era of the US dollar as the dominant reserve currency may be coming to an end, paving the way for a return to gold-backed systems. With that, let's dive into the rest of the video to hear Peter's full thesis.
The dynamics do not favor the dollar as the reserve currency. Remember, when the dollar became the reserve currency, initially, number one, it was backed by gold. And it wasn't just backed by gold, it was redeemable in gold. But also the US was the world's largest creditor nation, and we were the world's largest net exporter. We had huge trade surpluses, and we were this gigantic creditor. So it made sense. Everybody needed dollars because everybody wanted to buy our stuff. We made all the cars. We made all the radios. We made all the appliances. I mean, all the manufactured goods were made in America. And so people needed dollars to buy all our stuff. But, flash forward to today, we're the world's biggest debtor. We have the world's biggest trade deficits. What do anybody need dollars for? No one needs to buy our stuff. We don't make the stuff. Right? So people have been recycling these surpluses into our debt, into our bonds. But we owe so much money that it's obvious that anyone holding our bonds is holding the bag. They're going to take losses. So it doesn't work. And we have these global imbalances, huge economic imbalances, because Americans live beyond their means. We spend, but we don't save, or borrow, we don't save. We consume, but we don't produce. And this is a gigantic burden that we have imposed on the rest of the world that has to subsidize this. And the cost is getting higher and higher and higher. And so it's got to come to an end. And I think we accelerated the process early in the Biden administration with these sanctions on Russia, where we weaponized the exorbitant privilege that the world has given us against Russia. And we made an example, and we basically a warning, hey, if you own dollars, you better do what we tell you, or, we have the ability to punish you. And I don't think China is happy to be in that position. I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where the U.S. has that kind of power. So I think we've created another political incentive on top of the economic incentive to de-dollarize, to move away from the dollar. And, one of the things that happened early on in the 70s when we went off the gold standard, that's when we got Saudi Arabia to price oil in dollars. So, okay, well, you couldn't get gold for your dollars anymore, but at least you can get oil. We created the petrodollar. But, the world is moving away from that. I mean, more and more trade in oil now is occurring in other currencies. And so this process, I think, is going to accelerate in the years ahead, as this, debt bubble explodes, and we have to go back to QE, whatever we call it, in the face of escalating inflation. And then people realize that 2% inflation is a thing of the past if we ever actually had it, and it's going to be high inflation or double-digit inflation as far as the eye can see, and that means negative real rates on treasuries and U.S. debt, and nobody's going to want to hold it. And so then you're going to get this unraveling of the dollar, and then there's no way the dollar can be the reserve currency if it's losing that kind of purchasing power. So there has to be a replacement for it, and the most likely alternative is gold. A lot of people, and it's very conceited, but people think that, well, the dollar will be the reserve currency forever because there's no alternative, because the euro is not a good alternative, the yen is not a good alternative, the RMB is not a good alternative, so there's just no choice. The dollar wins by default. Well, we don't need another reserve currency. We could just have gold as a reserve, because gold was the reserve before the dollar. It wasn't the British pound. I mean, the pound was the biggest currency in use, but the pound sterling was real metal. The world was always on a metallic monetary system. Gold, silver were money. The fact that we now have fiat, that we have paper as money, this is new. I mean, it started in 1971, so it doesn't have that long of a history. And I think its history is replete with failures. I mean, look at all the problems we've had on this fiat standard. But I think that experiment is coming to an end, and the world will just go back to what worked, and that is real money. I mean, you can have paper, circulate as a money substitute, but it has to be backed by something of real value. It just can't be something that governments create out of thin air.
In this next discussion, Peter Schiff discusses his predictions about the US presidential elections, expressing his earlier belief in Trump's 2016 victory due to economic concerns. Schiff initially thought Trump would lose in 2020, citing unmet promises of making America great again. However, he now suggests that the current economic conditions, which he deems worse than in 2020, may lead voters to favor Trump again. Schiff highlights Trump's potential resonance with voters, criticizing Biden's handling of the economy and labeling him the most unpopular president. While Schiff anticipates a Trump victory, he emphasizes that it may not solve underlying economic issues. The voters, according to Schiff, remember a time when Trump was president and circumstances were perceived as better. However, he cautions that the economy's problems predate Trump's first term.
I've been saying for a while now that I thought that Trump would win, that Trump would be the first president since Grover Cleveland to be elected to 2 non-consecutive terms in office. I thought that Trump was going to win in 2016, and I believed that because he was telling the truth about the economy, and I knew the economy was a lot weaker than everybody claimed, and that the voters, Trump's message would resonate, and he won. And then I thought that he would lose in 2020 because I didn't think that he accomplished what he set out to accomplish. I didn't think he made America great again. I think he talked about it, but I don't think he actually did it. I thought the problems got worse, and he lost. But the economy is so much worse now than it was in 2020 that I think people are going to vote to go back to Trump because it certainly was better then, and they'll remember that their circumstances were better when Trump was president, whether it was Trump's fault or not. I mean, it's generally the economy's stupid. Investors or voters vote their pocketbook, and if they're not doing good, they blame the bums that are there, and they want to throw them out, and they want to get new ones. And I think that Trump's campaign speeches and his message are going to resonate, and I think Biden is the most unpopular president in history, I think. I mean, why? I mean, it's because the economy is terrible, and they're in denial of that fact. And so asking for 4 more years is not a winning recipe. At least Trump will promise to do something different. Biden can't promise to do something different. All Biden can promise is more of the same. Well, the same stinks. Nobody wants what we have now to continue. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump's going to actually be able to deliver on any kind of prosperity, but the voters don't know that. They just know that times are really bad, and they're hoping that Trump will change it. And they remember, it wasn't that long ago when Trump was president, and they only had one job, and they liked that. Now they have 3 jobs. They have no time off, right? They have no leisure time, and everything is more expensive, and they're poorer, and so I think Trump is going to win, but it's not going to be a panacea for the economy, because the problems are there. I mean, the problems have been there long before Trump's first term.
Today, Peter Schiff outlined the challenges facing the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, citing historical shifts, escalating economic imbalances, and recent geopolitical actions. He discussed the potential repercussions of the US being the world's largest debtor and the impact on global financial dynamics, highlighting the diminishing appeal of the dollar. In addition, Schiff shared his insights on the upcoming US presidential elections, predicting a possible return of Trump due to economic dissatisfaction. As we conclude today's discussion, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section.